Welcome to the Convergent Impact Leadership Podcast, where we explore real stories and strategies to inspire meaningful action and purpose. Whether you're a seasoned leader or just starting out, this podcast is for you to help you build your leadership and lead with intent, build trust, and strengthen relationships in your organization. I'm Leif Sackett, and I bring over 30 years of leadership experience, whether it was from my time as an active duty officer in the U.S. Army, or as a university instructor, or now in my capacity as a leadership coach to the fire service. Today, I'm honored to have Chief Leif Sackett with us. Chief Sackett leads Colorado River Fire Rescue, a district established in 2012 through the merger of the Burning Mountains Fire Protection District and Rifle Fire Protection District. Covering approximately 698 square miles, the district serves the communities of Rifle, Silt, and Newcastle here in Colorado. Chief Sackett's been instrumental in guiding the department through various challenges, including wildfire preparedness and community safety initiatives. We're excited to delve into his leadership journey, the strategies he employs to keep the community safe, and his vision for the future of the fire service. Chief Sackett, thank you for joining with us today. Let's dive in. So, Leif, tell us a little bit about what got you started in the fire service and what made you passionate about leadership, and how did that lead you to where you are now as Chief of Colorado Fire Rescue?
So this goes back, what got me interested in the fire service goes back to just essentially how I grew up. Small town in eastern Colorado, Cope, Colorado, about 40 people. And my dad was always on the volunteer fire service and volunteer ambulance service. And I was 16, and I remember getting woke up in the middle of the night. He's like, "Hey, Leif, we have a bad accident. There's a corner around the town where I grew up. We have a bad accident, and we need help." This is like 3 a.m. Okay, so I go with him. And long story short, as a 16-year-old, I end up driving that ambulance with multiple patients in the back and EMTs. There was 2 ambulances on scene. I ended up driving one of them to the hospital. And that just kind of opened my eyes, 16-year-old eyes like this. I'm sure my mouth was on the ground the whole entire time, just kind of staring, awestruck. But that kind of started it I like this. This is something that I want to do, because, it was 42 miles to the nearest hospital at that point. So a 16-year-old, white knuckling an ambulance all the way to 42 miles was very eye-opening for me. And that's kind of how I got my initiation into emergency services, if you will. And so I kind of always had a passion for it.
Yeah, at 16, you're thrown right in there. I think growing up, my responsibility at 16 was to hold the flashlight steady for my dad, but driving an ambulance, crazy.
I look back at how I grew up, and I'm so fortunate because just that ability to have that experience. Because you're right, my kids didn't have that experience growing up as they currently are, and I don't know that I want to put them in that position. But my dad trusted me in what we're doing and helping people, and it worked out. Like I said, that just kind of led as my career progressed. When my dad and uncle sold their business, and I want to look for something else to do. So I looked at Eagle River Fire, became a resident there, spent 5.5, almost 6 months there as a resident, and then got hired full-time on Rifle Fire. And it's almost 19 years ago now. February 24th will be 19 years ago that I've been hired on here in the Rifle area.
Frequently, I find it interesting when folks are coming up through the fire service, or when I was coming up through the military, at what point is it that you start thinking about leadership, right? Like when you're that initial entry firefighter and you're just, doing your job, focusing in your lane. At what interest do you start thinking about and having interest in? I can like what the lieutenant's doing, or I can see what that captain's doing, or maybe even further. Where does that enter into the equation for you?
I think every position in the fire service and in an organization, whether it's emergency service or not, there's leadership opportunities for people. And it all just depends on how you look at it. I don't have to be the most experienced person to be a good leader, right? Sometimes you lead from the bottom up, and it's all about being able to look at that and say, can I make a difference in this position? Can I make a bigger difference in a lieutenant's position or a battalion chief's position, a division chief's position? And I never necessarily had the goal of, well, I want to promote. I think I'm going to be the best person for that position. It was more so the opportunity presented itself. And then you look at it and you prepare for it. I think if for anybody to say, yeah, I'm ready for that position, I'm ready for a lieutenant's position, I'm ready for a battalion chief position. And I'm sure I thought that back in the day. I would like to think that I didn't, but I'm sure I did. And each time I've promoted throughout my career, you get into that position and it's no more than a week or two in, and it's like, boom, something slaps you across the face. You're like, whoa, I was not ready for that.
I like how you worded that, though, that there's opportunities for everybody to explore leadership in whatever capacity that they're in. And this is just a personal pet peeve of mine, but sometimes I hear people say everybody's a leader. And I think that kind of waters it down a little bit because, as you know, in your different leadership roles coming up, leadership is hard, and there's a great burden on leaders in, demonstrating and setting the example and leading with a vision and communicating effectively, and many sleepless nights accompany that. And so when you just simply say everybody's a leader, I think that takes away from some of the hard work, a lot of the hard work that leaders do. But I think the correct statement, as you articulated, is everybody has the capacity or an opportunity to lead in certain circumstances. Like take two firefighters out in the bay doing truck checks, and barring any of the other crew being present, maybe they're drawn away for other things, those two firefighters, someone has the ability in that circumstance to take charge and be in charge. And so there's lots of opportunities to lead. I just wouldn't put the blanket statement that everybody's a leader, because I don't think that's necessarily true. Now, some may debate that, but it's my prerogative.
I think some of it is perspective, and I agree. It's an opportunity, because leadership positions aren't about beating your chest. Look at me, I'm in this position because of who I am. No, that's not what leadership's about.
So as you were progressing along, your department underwent a merger with Burning Mountains right next door to you guys, right? That they were centered around Newcastle, or is that a...
Yeah, Burning Mountains was Newcastle and Silk, Colorado, surrounding areas. Rifle was just Rifle and surrounding area.
Okay.
And so then when it merged, it was all of that too.
What was your role at the time in the department when that merger happened?
So I was lucky because I got to be in multiple different positions at that time. I was very young in my career. I was a lieutenant when this process started, and when it finished, I had been promoted to battalion chief. And when you started asking this question, it made me smile, because we had, God bless him for doing this like he did, and the amount of pressure that he took. Had the Burning Mountain culture over here and the Rifle culture over here, and they were vastly, vastly different, right? And what that means is you can't let egos get in the way. And I look back on that, and being young in my career, right, I was in my box right here in my everyday, this is where I'm at. And I wasn't willing to expand my horizon. And so it was almost to the point of my way or the highway. And I look at that as an ego. And it wasn't just me, it was multiple people like that. That didn't really look at it from the aspect of, what are we doing to serve the community? Why are we doing this? And so we didn't focus on that. We were focused more on ourselves, and we let egos get in the way, and then you lose sight of the reason for them.
So when you were in those particular leadership positions as the merger was happening, as I'm sure you're aware and acutely aware now as fire chief, that culture is huge in any department. And so you can have the best intentions, but if you don't deliberately do the hard work in relation to the culture and bringing those two cultures together, in your specific lane of being a lieutenant and then being a battalion chief, what role did you have in bringing those cultures together, or lessons that you learned there that you think now in hindsight would have been more beneficial? Because I can imagine you get two departments together and there's factions of people that think, well, this is the way we did it, and that's better than the way you guys do it, or the other side saying, no, 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 that we're the right way. You merged with us, therefore you have to succumb to whatever we want, and it just kind of goes downhill from there. So what culture lessons did you see back then in bringing things together, or in hindsight now, that would have been beneficial?
I think I'll start with the time frame. The merger happened in a fairly shortened or condensed time frame. And I think looking back, and hindsight's always 20/20, you can look back and say, yeah, we did that wrong. And so I don't cast stones when I say this, but I think if we would have linked that time frame out a little bit, you could have taken more time to get the people that are the culture of the organization at the table and start looking at, oh yeah, we're merging the departments, but what culture do we want moving forward? And it's not, oh, well, here's my little silo over here. It has to be this or this silo over here. You bring those people to the table and you start building that culture, community first. What's your mission statement? What are your values? What drives why you're doing what you're doing? And we're in emergency services. That is our job. So our number one priority should always be the community first. And I think that's some of where we lost sight when we were going through the merger is we were putting our needs in front of the community's needs.
Yeah. And so you guys went from, well, you were rifle fire protection and they were burning mountains, and then you became Colorado River in that merger. So do you think, because I know a lot of organizations that merge either just assume the other organization into the fold of their organization and they just become bigger. Do you think it was beneficial for your department to create this new entity? Therefore, it wasn't going to be rifle fire and it wasn't going to be burning mountains. It was going to be this new thing that we're all in together.
And that's where I'll give, when you look at things, it's not just, hey, what we could have done better and what did they do well? Well, part of what they did well was very much, they did bring people together in a room and they did say, hey, we're not just going to merge to be either burning mountains fire or rifle fire. What can we do? What can we name ourselves? And the patch that I'm wearing, right? All of it is vastly different. So you build that new identity and it's something that people can grab onto and say, yeah, we're moving forward with this.
And I'm sure mergers take time and things improve over time. Are you still feeling any, how many years removed are we from the actual merger? Are you still feeling any of the effects of people saying, well, it was better this way when we were burning mountains, or factions still existing? Or are you guys like, that's completely in the rearview mirror now and everybody's kind of rowing in the same direction?
Overall, I don't think I don't see any of that. Like, oh, we were better off when we were one or the other, or this culture or that culture. I think we've done a good job at building what our CRFR culture is. We still have a long ways to go, right? To get better and to truly develop that. Because when you look at a fire department, when we're looking at going on 13 years old in September as a fire department, that is extremely, extremely young. And so we have a lot of growth as we're moving forward.
So let's shift a little bit to your personal leadership philosophy related to culture, I guess, keeping the morale high in the department, building trust, and getting everyone kind of focused on what the mission is always a challenge, especially when times get tough. How do you keep your team motivated, especially when things get hard?
I'll go back to something that I said a little bit ago about putting the community first and asking yourself, am I putting my needs before the needs of the community? And if we're doing that, then we're wrong. But when you start getting into those tough times, we always need to be mission focused and values driven. What that does is that provides your clear direction as you're moving forward for your decision-making capabilities, right? Our mission is we are ready. We protect life, home, and property. That gives our personnel the sense of belonging, and this is what we're doing. So be mission focused. Then our values are courage, compassion, integrity, and professionalism. And if we adhere to those values, that's our building blocks for strong relationships. And if we can stay mission focused and values driven, right, then we can navigate those challenging times. Or you look at it, that gives us the ability to have a resilient mindset, because everything's not always going to be great. You are going to have challenging times and make you think, what is going on? But if you're always mission focused and always values driven, that's your building blocks right there. That helps move forward. And then you don't put yourself as me. We're doing it for others.
I love what you're saying about the mission and that being the foundation. Full disclosure, I've done some work with you and your department on your recent strategic plan and the work with the defining the mission and the different things that follow from that and stem from that. And we've had discussions where we talk about how critical it is that the mission just doesn't exist on a conference room wall or doesn't exist simply on a website to sound good, but that mission has to be embedded within every member so that, in an extreme example, let's say there's an apocalypse and there's only one member of the department left and they happen to, get notified on their phone if the phones are still working and they show up at the department. The mission serves so that everybody can answer, why am I here? Why does this department exist? And what is my particular role in it in a big picture sense? Obviously, specific roles are further identified and defined. But if people don't understand that mission as to why am I here and why do we exist, then everything else that follows is a little bit disjointed after that. But if everyone can get on that same page, and I'm not trying to get preachy here, but if everyone can get on that same page with the mission, then you can say, okay, let's build our values after that. And then our objectives and our strategies follow that. And everybody knows what it's connected back to. Do you think at this point, the membership of your department all understands that mission foundationally, like this is why we exist and this is why I'm here?
I do. I think I do feel that they understand that and they work to make that happen. And a lot of that has to do with, like you said, you were very involved in helping us build our mission statement. And how many months on end it took us to develop that. There was so many conversations. And in the end, what we came up with was something that everybody could buy into, right? And when you buy into it, from the board level, right? That's who's my boss is our board of directors. And then for them, the citizens of our district. But that mission statement involved everybody from the newest firefighter all the way through our board of directors. And everybody got behind it and can move forward with that.
So your district not only does structure stuff focused in the three major towns that you serve and the other communities around there, but you guys are heavy into wildland stuff and preparing for wildland events in your area. How have the recent fires in Los Angeles caused you to think about, hey, we've got to be ready for stuff like this? And not that you didn't before, but that puts it on the top of mind. How has that shaped the way you get your team and community ready for wildland events?
The community is never ready for that. And I don't know that you could ever be prepared for something like that. A wind-driven fire, there was no stopping that. When you have embers going miles upon miles, you can't get out in front of that, right? That's not a fire that you can really do anything. We've had one of those in our state, in the Marshall Fire. You can prepare our biggest thing that we can do is community involvement and community engagement, right? And the more the community knows us, we don't want just the community to know us when they dial 911, when they have an issue. And so the more you're out in the community, the more you're educating them on, hey, this is why we want you to do mitigation, or this is why we want you to look at whatever is going on in your subdivision. One of the biggest things that keeps me up at night, or that I lose sleep about, is there's certain subdivisions in our district that have a single point ingress and egress. And so it's in a wooey area, right? There's wildland urban interface there. And that scares me And so the more education that we can do in our communities with that, I look back at what we've done at the Elk Creek subdivision with some of that stuff. Going to the homeowners association meeting, and everybody thinks mitigation, and they think, oh, well, you're just going to clear cut everything. Pump the brakes. No, we're not just going to go clear cut everything. Mitigation is the ladder fuels and making sure that you don't have trees directly up against your home and other things that you can do to prepare for something like that. But when you have winds that are blowing 70, 80, 90 miles an hour, you're not stopping that. You're not stopping that.
I was having an interesting conversation with somebody about the Los Angeles fires there, and their response to my question, just with it being top of mind, was so interesting. He said, listen, you mentioned Marshall. We've had Marshall fire. We've had fires right in our backyard that are extremely critical events. We need to learn from our own things. Los Angeles isn't going to necessarily teach us anything new that we shouldn't be prepared for, because we deal with this stuff every season or every year here in Colorado. So I thought that was interesting, right? Like, we don't need to go multiple states away to pick up a lesson and figure out what that lesson is. They're right here in our backyard.
And 100%. And, I'm not casting stones at anything of how that was ran or anything like that, but you have to take those opportunities to look at that and be like, what you just said, what can we learn from that? What can we do to make sure that doesn't ever happen in our community? If we don't, we're not serving our communities the way that we should be.
So training's obviously a huge part of what you do. It's embedded in the fire service, just like it was in the military. Training is what we do to get prepared for the real events. How do you make sure that leadership development as part of training is something that you do so that your team's ready to step up when it matters most?
There's so many different ways that you could go down with this answer. And it doesn't matter whether it's leadership, whether you're a brand new firefighter training. I don't train to get it right. I train so I never get it wrong. And that's in all aspects, right? So as you move up your career or move up the chain of command through different roles, training for leadership is no different than training for being a firefighter. Yeah, the training is different, but what I'm talking about is if you don't work to better yourself, you don't work for growing your leadership and opening your horizons and opening your mind, then you're going to get stuck in a rut and you won't go anywhere, right? And so there's so many different leadership development opportunities. One of the best classes, I guess, if you will, is through DU University, and it's public safety leadership development course. And man, did that open my eyes on so many different things. And I was fire chief when I took that course. And quite honestly, I wish I would have been a lieutenant when I took that course, because there are so many good things, so many things that would have helped me in my career that would have been like, man, Leif, don't be doing that. So when I say I don't train to get it right, I train so I never get it wrong, you have to progress your career and you have to be able to look at that as you're moving up the ladder and say, I need to work on my leadership. I need to work on whatever that may be, because nothing's ever the same.
I realized as I was asking you that question about leadership development that as it was coming out of my mouth, it totally sounded like a shameless plug. And I totally didn't mean it that way. I was really, like your response, interested in what the mindset of fire chiefs is when it comes to that stuff. I know a lot of folks say, well, it's important, we've got to develop our people. But then, there's constraints that you have. There's budget constraints. There's time constraints. There's other things that impact that, and the tactical training often, and rightfully so, the tactical training to get people out the door and to put water on fire and to do the job that they're trained to do is the priority. And sometimes the developing people, especially the leadership part of it, almost defaults to, we'll do it through mentorship, and people will just take the lessons of their leaders, and then they'll hopefully, when it's their turn, be able to do a good job. It's refreshing to hear that you see that there's importance there. And it wasn't a shameless plug.
I wish more people would be open to leadership, when I say leadership in general, there's so many things, so many little aspects that you can garner from leadership, from your everyday life, just nuggets that you can pull from in daily conversations you have with people. It doesn't have to be work related for you to be open to, hey, that's a leadership value that I could use in work. And so if you're open and you're always looking, you can intermix your personal life with your work life in that aspect of, I've never done something like that. Maybe I need to try that at work. In any conversation you're having. It might be the grocery store, where how many times you see somebody in the grocery store and you end up having a 30-minute conversation with him, and you walk out there going, wow, that's good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So firefighting technology keeps evolving, obviously. What things do you do to look at the new tech and the new tools that are available to help you and your team be more adaptable and be more successful in your mission and on the fire ground? I know there's efforts to remove the PFAS from your turnout gear and some of the stuff in the zones that you put into your stations to keep people safe in terms of cancer prevention and other health related things. So either tech along those lines or tech along the lines of being better at fighting fire. What stuff are you looking at now that's helping you guys in your department?
There's a lot of different things. Honestly, I'm very up on specifically the cancer prevention and things like that. But the latest and greatest on some of the technologies that are in the fire service, not so much. And we have some good people that work here that very much do know what all of that is, and they bring it to us, right? They bring it to us, and when they bring it to us in the aspect of, here's why. Talk about PFAS in gear. We're actually looking at right now, there's some training gear out there. It's not structure related, but if there's the PFAS in the gear, and we're burning a bottle, or we're doing some training that isn't specifically like we're in a burning building, we're doing some search training. If we can protect our people and get some training gear that is PFAS free, why don't we do that? Why don't we do that? So our quartermaster, he's amazing. He's done all this research, and he has it all built out of why we need to get this gear. And he's done the pros and cons of it. He's done the safety features of it, and he did all the work, and he brought it to us and said, Chief, we need to get 42 sets of this year. And he brought it to us last year. Okay, so we budgeted for it this year, right? The line staff know what they need. And if they can justify, like he did, he justified why we need to get this. Okay, support it. Like I said, I'm the last person that knows all the technology behind all of this.
I had a mind-blowing moment. I was doing a ride-along with a battalion chief in another department, and I was in his rig, the battalion chief's rig, and all the radio nets that he was operating on, that was set up where the little speakers that those radio nets were coming out of were positioned in different places around the vehicle, on the interior of the vehicle, so that spatially he could hear where that was coming from and understand what radio net that was. And it absolutely blew my mind. I know that's not like current technology that we're talking about with PFAS prevention and stuff like that, and some of the great things that are in the fire service. But that little thing there, because I remembered when I was a fire support officer in the Army, and I was in this now obsolete vehicle, Fist V was the vehicle, and we were running 4 radio nets, and all 4 radio nets came out of this one little speaker right in front of us. And you couldn't discern, or you had to try to think whose voices or call signs they were talking about. Just that, moving the speakers around, it just blew my mind and how great that was. But, it's the little things that get me excited. Let's talk about some personal things with you. So, running a department the size of Colorado River Fire Rescue, with all of the moving pieces that entails, how do you balance the job and the demands of that, being the fire chief, with your personal life? And what in that balance keeps you grounded each day so it doesn't become overwhelming?
I think want to have an amazing support group. When I say I have an amazing support group to help keep me grounded, family, right? My wife, my kids, mom, dad, all of that. I have amazing support group. And I think when I look at this and how do you balance the demands of the job, this job doesn't define who I am, right? And I don't know where I made the switch, because early on in my career, I was wearing a fire shirt every day that I was off shift, right? It truly defined who I was. And there has to be separation in when you look at that. And so to me, 100% when I'm here, I'm always 100% behind the department, but also you have to have some me time, right? And so my family is that. My wife and I started golfing together 4 years ago. And now we truly are planning trips like, hey, we want to go golf in Mesquite, or we want to go to St. George and golf in St. George. And I think for that to be grounded in that is you have to separate that out, right? What defines me is my family. And for me, that's what I look forward to. I look forward to hanging out with my wife. Currently, I'm able to work out with my oldest son every day. That's my time away from work. That's what I look forward to. And it helps set that balance. And the other thing in there, I said I work out every day. That is a huge stress relief as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I get grumpy if I don't get a good workout in at least a good hour, and that helps so much. Did I answer that question?
Yeah, no, it's all good stuff. And your golf, mention of golf reminds me that I have this ping driver that I bought 2 years ago. And then I injured my back. Healthy now, but I still haven't played around with it. So you're going to have me out there to rifle and swing that club.
Bring it up. Yes, absolutely.
So as we start to wind down our conversation, Leif, I'm curious what your big picture vision for Colorado River is. What leadership-related priorities are you focused on for the future?
For an organization or organizationally, we have some pretty cool stuff that's going on right now that's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years. We're looking at renovating one of our stations, and we just in the last year did an academy of 9 people. And those are things that we've never really done in the past. So the immediate right here, right now, those are some of the big picture stuff that we have going on. It's super exciting because you get to involve everybody in what you're doing, especially when you start talking about renovating a station, right? There's a lot of ideas out there. And in some of the conversations, stuff that I've never thought about. And so when you talk to the crews, but leadership priorities for the future for CRFR, I'm a big believer in leaving a place better than how you found it. Surrounding yourself with people better than you, everything just kind of falls in place after that. Right? I don't have to know all the answers in the position that I'm in. I'm humble enough to know that I don't know everything. Right. And, if you throw humility in there with leadership, some of the best leaders I've ever been around know that they don't know it all. Right. And they have the courage to say, I don't know it. I need help, or I didn't do that right. And if I don't espouse that with what I'm doing at CRFR, I'm not setting us up for success in the future. I look at some leaders that have made a big impact on my life growing up. And I look at my dad and Chief Callahan. And my dad taught me patience. He very much, I mean, times I've called him and he would talk me off the ledge. I would just be all wound up and just ready to go and this. And he just take some time and relax, think through what you're doing. And that's what I appreciate about how I grew up. I never grew up with my ego being stroked, like, oh, here you go, it's all about you. No, my parents very much taught me, take a step back, take a look at what you're doing, and do the right thing. And then I'll also throw Chief Callahan in there because he's one that really taught me some of the concepts of leadership and how they tie to what you're doing, how it's not always about what you want to do and making other people shine through processes. And when that it's so great to see growth in people when you do that. So I guess where I'm going with it, Eric, is setting CRF up for the future is letting people do their jobs, giving guidance where needed, but not micromanage them. I have some great people that I work with around here. They know their job. They don't need for me to be like, this is how you need to be doing this. No, we have a great team and we do a good job of communicating. And so I guess the biggest downfall of most places is communication. And if you don't have the conversation and you're afraid to have a conversation, you don't have the ability or room for growth.
Yeah. And when you say letting people do their jobs, if you give them that vision, that leader's intent that we talk about, and you let them use their initiative and their expertise to do great things, they're going to blow your mind in the awesome stuff that the department does. And that's such a powerful thing, right? No one wants to work for a micromanager. They want to work for somebody that empowers them and then lets them do it. And I think that's awesome. And I also liked what you said about leaving the organization better than you found it. I just hope that when you say the word leaving, that isn't at any time soon, because I know you're doing great stuff there with the department. One last question, if I could. Looking back on your career and all the different interactions you've had with community members and different scenes that you've been on and different leadership-related exchanges that you've been part of and other things, is there a key leadership lesson for you that stands out and that shapes who you are now and how you lead?
That's a great question. I think in my experience, I've learned more from leaders that I look at and be like, I don't want to do that. But that's only a small part of it, because I already talked about Chief Callahan and my dad. I go back to my college days, and there's two specific coaches that I can remember that had a very big impact on me. And one of them was just straight in your face. He never said anything demeaning, but he wasn't afraid to tell you when you screwed up. And so honestly, what he taught, I love that man. Love that man. He taught me that you have to have thick skin. Doesn't matter what position you're in, you have to have thick skin, right? Just because it helps you out. It builds resiliency and you learn from it. And his name was Monty Bennett. And he actually played in the NFL, and he coached me in college. Absolutely love the guy. And Coach Bell was the other coach. Just one of those people that you would absolutely run through a brick wall. I hung my hat on everything that man said. He was our defensive coordinator in college. And between those two, I'm not sure that I would have developed into the person that I am, just for their ability to know how to talk to people, right? And know how to read a room and know the right situation of when it was okay to tell Leif, stop. You're screwing up. That's the clean version of some of the stuff that Coach Bell would say to us. But I look back at that and not just one defining moment, more so defining people in my career that has helped me get to where I'm at.
Nice. Well, Leif, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. I certainly appreciate you. I appreciate the relationship that we've formed over the last, 4 or 5 years now working together. I love looking on social media and seeing the great things that you and Colorado River Fire Rescue are up to and doing. Your dedication to the fire service and your department specifically and the community it serves is truly commendable, and I appreciate that. For our listeners, if you found today's episode insightful, please share it with your colleagues or anyone that you think might benefit from this content. Don't forget to subscribe to the Convergent Impact Leadership Podcast and leave a review. If this helps others discover valuable insights and improves their leadership, then we've done our job here. For more tools and insights to support your leadership journey, visit convergentimpact.com. And until next time, as always, lead well, take care of your people, and keep setting the example.